Hey, it's Sean Hurley, and you're watching Yannick Gwizdala's video podcast. I was like that. I literally remember telling one of my friends in Boston, who's a great guitar player, I said, I just want to sit and get all these notes out so that I could feel like, okay, I've done it.
Right.
And you just got to get them out so that when you're on a gig, you don't feel that itch to, hey, there's something I gotta say to someone. Because then you're really not playing for that person's music.
So going back to, you said your friend introduced you to the Donny Hathaway live record, and you felt the need to transcribe that. What were some of your, for want of a better phrase, vocabulary builders or sources of vocabulary that really inspired you to play the way you play?
I'm now that I'm in my reflection mode, having gone to Berklee and talking, and owning the fact that I did play a 5-string with a high C, it started first love for music and wanting, someone said, hey, play a bass, it just seemed like a great idea. And it was the 80s, so the stuff that was happening that I was listening to was Kiss and AC/DC, Bon Jovi, everything that was on the radio, Rat, Poison, not Rat Poison, but Rat, Poison. Aerosmith was having one of their many comebacks, all that stuff, it's like 85, 86. Well, the first band, there was a cool kid, we were real good friends, but he was just a little cooler than me, and his favorite band was AC/DC. So he was doing the guitar, his brother was playing drums, it was my job to learn the bass, and it really, we would mime it. I loved AC/DC. I wasn't even thinking of it musically, I'm a musician and I love that music. It was just, I love AC/DC, and since I'm playing bass, maybe I should learn some of these songs. So at 14, this is the core of the foundation which I branched off of, and then I feel like I've come back to now, is that AC/DC, that's a bass player's bass line. You walk up, you yell your background, you walk back. So that core, and then David Lee Roth, Eat 'Em and Smile, seeing Billy Sheehan, that whole record. Then I went back for Talus. So while I was on this super straight rock, not really challenging bass path, I then got hip to Billy Sheehan. Then the Rush bug hit, and then because I read music from day one, I took lessons from the first day I had a bass. I could grab any book and go, I want to learn Red Barchetta, so I'll take it to my bass lesson and we'll work on it. So it's that rock core. AC/DC led to David Lee Roth with Billy Sheehan, that led to Rush, and I'm doing all that, and then I enter high school and it's the jazz band, and I just never said no to a musical style. I was like, jazz.
So you were open.
I just wanted to play for anything. I would play a graduation ceremony for some school, because it's like people hear that you play bass in a small community and they just come running at you with opportunities.
Right.
This guy who loves the Dead and Pink Floyd, well, he wants me to play with him, so I'm learning all these Pink Floyd tunes. We have a cover band, and then it's that just simply you're building on your successes. I'd get up and play Tom Sawyer, Comfortably Numb, all these rock songs, and people loved it, and other older guys, 20-year-olds in the audience would be like, man, you're great. So I wasn't great, but they noticed something in me. They probably weren't great either, but I was like, oh wow, I'm doing it right.
So what you were doing was translating.
Yeah, it just was speaking. I was out in front of people, out in front of my peers, where we would just play, and it's easy for a bass player at that stage. If you get it, you can just play anything, because I wasn't asked to solo yet. I wasn't asked to play the head of a jazz tune. The guitar player's trying to figure out how to solo, which, he's playing rhythm, he sounds good, then he goes to solo and you realize, we're all really young. But a bass player, if you just do it right, you can play with all these older guys, because what's asked of you is a more core related thing. Just play the E. It's like that bass lesson joke, the guy goes to a first bass lesson, learns the E string, next lesson learns the A string, then quits because he's got a gig. But that was that core rock and roll, which led, and then in high school it's jazz, and then I start playing with older guys, which it's that challenge. I'm competitive, like I'm sure all of us are. I want to learn how to do that. I'm walking bass lines. I had a great teacher who introduced me to the real book. I had no idea. He was like, well, this is how you show up on a gig. You can read. So I I needed to do more listening at that time, but it was like, well, I can read music, great. Walking through changes, okay, that's what that is.
Right,
And
right.
you get exposed to all that. Meanwhile, I'm just like a freight train going down rock and rollville playing a high school dance, which I think I married those two things, and I get introduced to the Beatles and stuff. Like, I always liked songs, I think is what it
Okay.
was. So as I'm learning, you know, oh, Rush, blah, 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 stuff, it was still songs, and then the jazz thing was a flavoring, like a place to put all my questions of, well, how is music even built? How are things related to each other?
Right. Very cool. One thing that sticks out to me and impresses me and is very inspiring to me about your playing and your career is like you've talked a little bit about like the multitude of genres and the multitude of situations you
Right.
find yourself in. When did you make the move to LA, and what was the kind of route into the LA studio?
I've just
scene?
relived this too, because I went back to Boston, where, you know, I live. It's like going back. Hey, I lived here when I was young, and now I come back and I can afford to go to a restaurant that I, you know, couldn't
Right.
even imagine like, going out to eat on Newberry Street. But
What?
it was like, oh my God, I'll never do that. Only when my
Right.
parents come to visit.
Right.
So I was in Boston. It was just work. I was just working, meeting up, joined Vertical Horizon. But that band, I was making $250 a week. They had a record deal, and that was it. So I couldn't quit playing blues with guys. And
Right.
this is the days before cell phones, so I'd be checking my messages.
Yeah.
You know, got a date. Oh, great, I can make that blues gig. And one of the guys I worked with consistently, and I just hung out with, and we even started an instrumental trio that was kind of modeled after like a little Chet Atkins kind of thing. It was in the days when Medeski, Martin Wood were coming out, but
Right.
it was this guitar player, drummer, myself. He had caught Robin Thicke's ear when Robin was just a songwriting producer guy, and he was probably 20 at the time. This guy, the guitar player named Bobby Keys, again, it's in Boston. He calls me up. I'm out on tour with Vertical Horizon. We just put out a record in '99. In June of '99, that record comes out to what's going to be a long, slow climb.
Yeah.
That a year later we'll have a hit, but that's a long year of, you know, doing these gigs. And this guy, Bobby Keys, introduces me to Robin and says, hey, same old question. Hey, Robin needs a bass player. Are you free this week? He wants to have me fly out. This is Bobby. He wants to have Bobby fly out to LA, stay at his house, and just work on his music. This is before Pro Tools, so there was a lot more pre-production,
Right.
a lot more songwriting if you wanted to hear what the song was going to sound like.
You
You
had to
a
get people
band
together, yeah.
play it over and over again.
Right.
So we flew out, and, you know, Robin loved Bobby, so I was Bobby's buddy. Hey, great, you're in the band. You know, it wasn't really for money, it was just yet another opportunity. Robin was writing songs for Christina Aguilera, who had just broken, so
Right.
Robin's living up in the Hollywood Hills. I just think that's the coolest gig to do when I'm not doing Vertical Horizon, which was, is the band going to make it or not? Who
Right.
knows? I hooked up with Robin and immediately saw an opportunity. Hey, here I could try to be a session guy. You know,
Right.
Boston, you're kind of playing with it a little bit, recording a tape. You know,
And was
it great.
writing, you know, in your mind there, or was that just a product of getting into that scene?
That was, writing for me has always been something I did without really focusing on it for any career move. But just, if we needed songs in a band, in the instrumental trio band we had, I would write songs because we needed material. So I just played a bunch of those songs last week when I was there. I hadn't played them for 10 years. But it was, you know, trying to challenge myself. So, but with Vertical Horizon, there was a lead singer, a band already in existence. It wasn't a situation where writing was even, it's like, we just need a bass player.
Right.
These two guys wrote the songs. And a lot of bands, they work that way,
Sure.
when you come in as a new guy. So I didn't try to write there. If there was an opening, I would go for it. I would never meet a new artist and say, hey, by the way, I'm also a writer, you know. But Robin created an atmosphere. He's up there. I think I knew that Bobby had written some songs with him. But I want to get the gig as a bass player.
Right.
And then see if they're open to it. You can usually sense it as your relationship grows. And then you go,